Now here with me is Adrian Oel, archive manager of EVS Media. So what do you think? Is it a good decision from Liverpool to get the German manager, sign the German manager Jürgen Klopp?
Well, they needed to do something. They weren't doing very well, and Klopp's a very good manager, and he's obviously done very well at Mainz and Borussia Dortmund. And I think obviously Liverpool are looking for the Borussia Dortmund effect. Big club, but we're in a bit of the doldrums, and see how it goes. I think he'll be very good, actually.
But we are here to talk about archives. So can you explain to us in a few sentences the special role archives have in sports and sports broadcasting?
Sure. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the archive is what tends to bring the sport to life for the big events. So you generally show the previous events. So at a World Cup, you have nothing else to show but the previous World Cup and the one before that. I mean, how many times have we all seen the Jairzinho goal from 1970 Brazilian team? Plenty of times. We've all seen, if you like, shots of Germany winning the World Cup in 2006 at their place and things like that. So archive has a massive importance, not just for broadcast though, obviously, but for all the other areas of the sports and the federation, coaching, refereeing, news access, education. So it's just a complete bundle of content which people are able to use. At EVS, we generally don't call it archive anymore. It's content, and it's being able to manage that content to push it forward into other areas.
Speaking of the high demand of the content, which three kind of sports have the highest demand?
Well, the Olympics has the highest demand, to be fair, first of all, because of how many sports it is and the real historical value and the sort of stories that surround the Olympics. I mean, secondly is football, definitely in football. And then the third one is, it's hard to say because, again, in certain countries or in certain areas, you have different requests. So, for instance, in Asia, some of the sports that get requested from archive are things like wushu, sepak takraw, sports you've never heard of. In Germany, I would imagine, where you have no rugby, you have, it'd be football mainly, and then strange other things. In France, judo is the third most requested sport, behind rugby first and then football. So it's very hard to say, but I think if we're looking at Europe, you have to kind of say Olympics and then football.
Speaking of archives in general, what do you think will archives look like in 5 years? And is the development of sports archive different to normal archives?
Well, to answer your first question, I would hope that archives are more digital in 5 years' time, and also that the content is able to be sort of repurposed and recoded, if you like, for different uses. I mean, obviously, that's going to be crucial. In 5 years' time, people can't still have tapes building up because the machinery isn't there to play them, to digitize and things like that. So the push to digital is going to be big. It's interesting because the process is actually the same as a tape archive, but you just do it more up front as opposed to at the back. So you used to record a tape and then you'd give that tape to the library to add the metadata. Well, now, because of digital and metadata, you do that at the very beginning, and then when the feed or the recording is done, it's done. The archive process is stopped and it can just be stored because everything can be found. So the only change really is that you can you put the work at the front end, but also now you can track different uses and different ways for that to be used. Say 5 years ago, all we'd ever talk about was taking a piece of content and putting it on a beta or a digibeta. Now you're talking about maybe putting it on 16 different formats in many different codecs in many different ways. So I mean, the change in 5 years' time could be phenomenal. But for now, I think for now it's very much like a tape-based process and archive.
Thank you very much. Have a nice remaining time in Vienna.